major events, during many events and stuff like that when you participate. Higher notoriety is going to get you noticed. So if you actually want to get an audience with somebody, doing a bunch of stuff that will grab attention is a great way to have that happen. And consequently, you can also do nothing or change identities, and your notoriety will change. Because they can only keep track of the people who they have information on. So if they know your face, they know your reputation. Because the best way to look at it is that you assume, because they've proven that they have an intelligence network that they've been working with, that they know everything your village knows about you. They have resources on you. They've studied you. They know your habits. They know where you like to go to eat every day. Like you said, ninja bucks. You stop for ninja coffee. They know what you like in your ninja coffee. So you have to be careful about things like that. So, I mean, it's reasonable to assume that when you start changing things, it'll affect how the notoriety goes up and down. If you want it to be higher, it either makes you a target, or you can use it to grab attention and then switch sides. Like I said, Homura went double agent on us, which could be interesting. And maybe he decides he likes the Cabal NPCs more, and he wishes to burn the Sand Village into the ground. No one knows. Anything could really happen. He might find them charming enough to switch sides completely. No one knows.
It's interesting. All right, I know I'm trying to use the organization that we have in Cloud right now as a similar way to the Cabal, but I don't have like a rigorous reputation on the right system in play, so I'm gonna, I guess, get points from you and see like how I should approach this, because I really like how you're approaching the civilians and seeing like the dichotomy between them, things like that. So it's pretty interesting.
Oh yeah, I mean, you have to be completely flexible. I'm never a fan of, so you write the start of an event, and then the middle is kind of, and then you have the end of the event written. So you already know how it starts and you already know how it ends, and then people just kind of get to do stuff in the middle. So it's fun for them in the middle, and then they get to the end and they're like, "Oh, we kind of saw this coming." Where
nothing I did mattered.
Yeah, when it's more dynamic, when every single decision, like from start to finish, alters the ending of it as to how it could happen, is completely different. For instance, like I said, so we were talking about turning the Cabals for the Sand Village because maybe they have a disagreement with one of their higher ups. You turn them over, they're now fighting for Sand, and then by the end of the event, these NPCs are now allied with the village. More importantly, it would also give people a cool opportunity, and not saying that anyone will, because I'm pretty sure most people will like, especially like what they've done with their characters after this event, that you could even potentially be like, oh hey, these guys are now really cool. Maybe I want to be more involved with them. I'm not sure on the rules, because I haven't checked them on the. You could maybe even OCR into one of these guys. Again, I guess the history would depend on that, but like you have interesting opportunities that can come from this, and it's because it's not the end of the end of the event is guaranteed. All the Cabal die, or the end of the event you turn all of them over. Because I can guarantee you, there's at least one of them that you will probably not turn at all, ever. So I mean, and that's because that's just the kind of guy he is. But the interactions with him will ripple out to the rest of his troops that he's ordering around on the battlefield. So there's no set ending. There's no outcome that is foreseeable, because every single topic someone writes alters how the next step is going to be taken. So dynamic. Have it change according to what people do. If someone spends a lot of time and makes an interesting decision in the topic, let that ripple out forward so they can see what decisions they may change the environment. And people really like that. Because it's like, oh, I did that, and now we get to do this because of that. So people feel important when you actually have dramatic things come from their decisions.
Okay. Well, we got 8:30, so you guys want to do an intermission? We got Yamashi just notified me that he's online, so I'd like to put him on after the intermission.
Oh yeah. During the intermission, people feel free to ask questions. We will be gathering them to answer in the Q&A section. And if you have any for Yamashi, go ahead and take those up also.
I'm just going to throw some music on, and we're going to chill for about 5 minutes. So grab your drinks, go to the bathroom, and unless you're Kodamon, in which case you already did that. And come
Let me
back.
scream at my cat to shut up. Shut up!
Are we on now?
Yeah, we're still here.
I hope not.
No, we're still here.
Wait, what? We're still live?
Yeah, we're still here. Good job,
God
guys.
dang it!
Thumbs up, everybody. Your hosts.
Yeah.
I thought we were on the intermission, man. Now everyone thinks I hate my cat.
That was Times Like This by Faint. So nice song. We have Mashi is returning. Not Yamashi. Yamashi has just notified me that he's here, so we're gonna bring him into the call.
How goes it?
Evening.
Hey,
Good evening.
Sorry
how's it
to
going,
hear about
Yamashi?
the birthday issues, man.
Yeah, I decided to not visit NC yesterday for that very reason, but hey, such is life. Thanks, though.
Well, this is the 5th episode, so we're happy for you. We're happy to have a guest onto the site. So, Yamashi, we're in the beginning of the podcast, we were talking about like contract and how we have a new ability called contract mastery. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about that? Were you involved in that ability, new ability for the players?
I was, but not to the greatest extent. It's more like a facilitator. The team really wanted to. They had a lot of ideas. They still have a lot of ideas, but really, I think Komio, Carl, the former him, Soji. I mean, really, just the whole team. They had a lot of ideas from not only that ability, but even different contract. Wow, different summons. As a matter of fact, they also had different Sage mode ideas, and that was just one of the ideas that made it through. So it's really unique. I don't think anybody liked having to spend 6 AP to summon a contract, or
Sure.
even now that you can have more than one contract. Technically, you could end up with 4 different contracts.
Really, I thought the limit was only 2. I thought.
Well, you can get 2, and then you can fuse them together via the AP shop, or that was one of the ideas we were trying to get past. But basically, the idea was you can fuse 2 via the AP shop, which you make a fused contract. Now, let's say you have bird and bat. You fuse them together, now you have birds and bats. Well, you can no longer use them separately. You have to use them together. So you take 5 different contracts of your choice from that, your standard D, C, B, A, S rank. You can mix and match from any of those 2. That's now considered one contract. You can then, from that point on, go off and get another one. And then technically you can use it again. You can use the ability up to twice to have 4 different contracts become 2 separate contracts, which is pretty interesting. But with the onset before, if you remember back in old NC, you could only ever have 1 contract ever. So with 2, it only seemed natural looking at the manga and the TV show that, hey, you got to give people the ability to summon more than 1 contract because they can have 2 separate ones. I mean, who wouldn't want to be able to fight, with 2 summons? But of course, we had to make it somewhat balanced because those are very glorified clones. And the last thing somebody wants to do is get jumped by 3 different entities with 30k HP.
I'd like to ask a question. I know in the past the contract team was cooking up new contracts. Is that still the case? Are we expecting to see new contracts in the future?
Well, at this time, we're in talks with the admin to actually allow village contract or faction contracts. Even the nukes will get one. So once we get that off the ground, the hope is that the different villages, the factions, can make their contracts, get back to us. I think for the most part, every council has somebody that touches contract or dev at a certain point. So we expect to see some balanced things come from the factions, and that way we can make more contracts happen in a more IC way. We don't want to just have stuff happen or show up and it doesn't make sense. Oftentimes you can't avoid that, but that's really, being that we are a more RP focused team, our focus is always making sure that things make sense in the world in which we play in versus simply just adding stuff.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, since you're here, I like you to discuss about what's going on in Stone. I know you're the residential card, so.
Ah, buddy, that's interesting. What isn't happening in
What's
Stone?
going on, boss? Come on.
Well, we have. I think technically we're the largest village, which is
By
pretty
far.
surprising.
It's not even fair because
It's not even
we have
close.
2 villages combined, really. It's like
Yeah, and that's the thing. 2 villages combined, but we lost just as many people as actually transitioned into the village. If you look at the numbers, we've actually been stealing from other factions, which I'm not going to say that's necessarily a great thing, but hey, I'll take members however we can get them. But we currently are trying to look for a medical sending. Again, ICly. We're not just going to do some, hey, vote for your favorite person type thing. And so, as the Kage, I'm actually about to start jumping in people's topics like, hey, what are you doing? And really, we're in the background, we're also working on some events to, again, make it more of a smoother transition, not just some random thing. Hey, so-and-so walked to the Kage's office and they got a new promotion. We want to make sure that it makes sense to the characters as well as to the council, too, because if you think about positions like Kage sending, those are really important. I think we all know what happens if you have a bad Kage.
Yeah.
It can completely ruin anything and everything. But again, then too, with Stone, we're rather closely tied with Leaf and Mist as far as how many people actually got to the village character-wise. It's not, being that we did fuse, out of character, we made sure, we didn't necessarily make sure, but a lot of people in character incorporate that into their stories. And so a lot of the issues you'll see in Stone character-wise, what are we going to do with all these, refugees, or what are we going to do? When are we going to send aid to Konoha to help them out? And so that's just a little bit of what we're doing. We have a lot of students, so exams are always important to them. Sometimes you forget when you've been capped for so long how it feels to need that rank up. But really, we have a pretty diverse council, and we have council members at every stage. So we all might not be working on the same thing, but everybody's working on something.
Okay, cool. Well, one thing I don't know if you guys wondering, I know Stone has Sand Daimyo. I never understood why the Stone Daimyo is, a member of the village.
What that's one of those things in which the site itself governs certain things. Obviously, the daimyo shouldn't necessarily be a shinobi.
Yeah,
That's just, I don't think anybody would think, venture to say that you would think that's normal. The president of the United States isn't necessarily, a Marine.
yeah.
But with our thoughts with that was from a council standpoint, again, going back to Kage, one bad Kage can completely ruin a village. And so we always want to have that power balance, so that if ever we got a Kage that was just not working out, we had some in character justifiable means of dealing with them. So that's why we thought of having the daimyo be a character that was played by somebody. But the intent originally, from what I understood, it was that person, whoever the daimyo was, would always have to be a council member. That way, it would give people not on council the ability to be Kage, because it's, on one hand, you can see why it might be best to always have your Kage be on council, because again, a lot of things Kage is pretty pivotal to your village. But on the other hand, obviously it's a position that at this point only 3 people on the site can be Kage. You can have multiple people sharing the power character wise, but only 3 people can have the banner. So we didn't want to make it this unobtainable shiny thing that nobody could ever reach. One day, I may no longer be the Kage. And so we don't necessarily want it to be something where oh, well, you know what? You weren't cool enough to make it on council, or we don't necessarily have the room because, again, everybody can't be council. So we want it to make it something that everybody could enjoy, different levels and different jobs and ranks and titles in the village.
Okay, that makes sense. But I always thought that like the setting was supposed to be the checks and balances for the power of the Kage. So, the Daima kind of replaces that in its stone, I suppose.
In a sense, yes, because a Kage can theoretically just fire all the sinning. Then where do you land?
Actually, it kind of happened like when Inishi like took control of Kyo back in the day.
Yeah,
it's happened more often than that.
Happened in Leaf.
Well, yeah,
if you remember.
Let's see. There was Katsura. There was Rami.
Kami technically fired me.
Yeah.
In topic. I mean,
and then got pulled into the fight.
Yeah, I mean, so with the daimyo, basically that balance was there because the Kage can't hold it. It's different levels of power. You know, you might have your military. The president can take over the military, so to speak, in emergency situations, but typically the military does its own thing. You know, they carry out the will of the president, so to speak, but they don't necessarily have to answer for every little thing to the president. So that was kind of the thought with the Kage. The Kage doesn't necessarily have to answer to, you know, for everything that they do to the daimyo. But if ever the Kage was to do something grossly, you know, out of sync with the will of the country or what was best for the people, then the daimyo could step in. Hey, look, you know what? You're not working out. We're going to sit you down. And then, you know, the people from that point could choose who they wanted to support more, the daimyo or the Kage. And I think that'd be pretty interesting to see what would happen if ever something happened like that.
Oh yeah, Yamashi, there's a question in the audience. What's Stone's position in regards to the other villages? So let's say like someone from Cloud or Stan like decided to like walk into your village. So how will you approach them? Would it be a hostile or would it more be like neutral type thing?
Or neutral. Interestingly enough, when it comes to Cloud, we actually share a sea, I do believe, way up north. So I mean, obviously, we don't want to just start hacking and slashing at people because we can get invaded by land and by sea, and nobody wants to fight a battle on two fronts. But even with Sand or the Wind Country, we're the two biggest nations in the known world. So obviously, going to war with them might, you know, cause some to give pause for a moment to really think about the ramifications. Do we want to go through with this? But it was actually my thought this week that hopefully I could start something and really just try to get the different villages in on, you know, just an underlining world plot. Obviously, Konohai and Kirigakure fell, you know, for various reasons.
Yeah.
In the case of Konohai, it was a civil war against their daimyo. And then in the case of Kiri, it was just global warming. So I wanted to basically
anti-global warming.
Happened in a village. So,
yeah. So,
I do need to get the stone so I can actually talk to Endo about the summit that.
Yeah, it's weird because like
we need to have one because those things would naturally be alarming to anybody. I think if China or if we think about with Korea, you know, if South Korea, North Korea ever fell, people wouldn't just go, oh.
I'd rather go with China. I'm pretty sure Mr. Lee are more important than Korea.
True. If China fell, it would be a really big deal. So same way with Konohai and Kiri, you know, you can't just, it wouldn't make sense to ignore that two of the biggest, you know, shinobi nations fell, and we're not going to look into it, you know, jointly to make sure it wasn't, you know, some uprising by the minor countries or minor villages, as they call them, or, you know, to make sure it couldn't happen to us. And being that, you know, I know Sand and Stone, respectively, we're kind of rather close to the Fire Country. We definitely would want to look in at it. You know, Kiri's kind of out there on its own, but you can't ignore Konoha falling. It's on the continent with you. And a civil war could, if people
Bleed
start realizing that, hey, we don't have to listen to the daimyo. Oh, well, why are we listening to this guy? So yeah, I'm really looking forward to working on a Kage summit. I think it'd be a little bit more manageable now. We're down 2 people.
Yeah, plus for the new travel rules, it's not going to be such a pain to set up.
Yeah,
That's
now
true,
we have
too.
NPC areas too.
I still want the Kachon to be like released when we release the travel rules, so that we can have the ability to like post in the thread and still interact with our own villages. Kind of like how I think the festival that Plotting had a few months back. Something like that would be really nice. Because I really think a costume is really necessary for the story.